And we are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicenda. I am Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP, which is a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard, and skincare alchemy in the Bardic College of Content Creation. We are doing something a little bit different tonight. One of our favorite things to do is to sit down with the designers of games and play those games with them. We do that a lot. We play one-shots, we play two-shots. We'll do maybe a 3 or 4 part short little story arc. Tonight we are sitting down to try something we've never done before on stream. We are doing a full campaign of a game. It's one of my favorite games by one of my favorite creators. I'm very, very excited to have Jason Cordova here with us running a 15-part campaign with The Between. We are going to post our session 0 over to our YouTube channel where we do kind of some extended introductions and other stuff like that. But we do want you to meet some of the amazing people that we have playing with us tonight. Also, I'm going to have to fix something live on stream in a second. Y'all are going to have to watch the weird behind-the-scene things happen because it won't let me do it in preview mode while all that's happening. But if you're new here, again, my name is Tony Vicenda. I use he, him pronouns. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP. You can find us at Plus One EXP most places. Jason, let's start with you. Before we meet everybody else. So why don't we tell people a little about who you are, what you do, and give us just the elevator pitch of The Between. We're going to get into it a lot deeper in a second, but let's hear a little bit about the game we're about to play.
Yeah, thanks. So I am Jason Cordova. I am the creator of The Between and other games like Brindlewood Bay and the Silt versus role-playing game and Public Access. I am the founder of the Gauntlet gaming community, and I'm the head of Gauntlet Publishing. I'm also a podcaster. I host a couple of shows, or co-host a couple of shows. One is called The Darkened Threshold, which is about mystery horror games, and the other is Fear of a Black Dragon, which is about old school adventure modules. And The Between is a game that I started working on back in 2018, and it came out in its current form a few years ago. And we are hoping to kickstart a physical edition pretty soon. It's a game about monster hunters in Victorian era London. They live in this big house called Hargrave House, and they are broody, they are angsty, they are dark. It's a game that's inspired by TV shows like Penny Dreadful and things like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and stuff like that. It's very Victorian, very gothic. These characters are going to be hunting down monsters, both literal and figurative monsters, we'll say. And they may have to tangle with a criminal mastermind as well. So yeah, that's The Between.
Awesome. Super excited to sit down and play. Let's meet the other folks we're playing with. Let's start with B, Narr. B, why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, where they can find you?
Hi, I'm Narr. I am a voice actor and sometimes dabble in tabletop RPG writing with the lovely Jason Cordova. And I like to do actual plays. It's very fun. And you can find me everywhere at Sassy Lich. You've probably heard me in your horror podcasts if you listen to those. That's usually where I hang out.
Awesome. Super glad to have you, Wes.
Hi, howdy. My name's Wes Franks. My pronouns are they, he, and this evening I'm playing the Factotum. But other than that, in my when I'm not doing this, I am a tabletop designer, writer, actual play producer, hype person. I run games professionally. I just kind of do it all. Do panels and all that good stuff. I'm so excited to be here. I love The Between so much. I love this game so much, and I thanks for having me. I hope you all enjoy it.
Awesome. Super excited to dive in with everybody. Of course, we have Vyn, who will be with us normally, but was unable to because of illness tonight. So, Vyn, we hope you get better. We're looking forward to having you with us next week when some random American shows up on the streets of London. So, which I think matches also the vibes of Penny Dreadful really well. It's obvious folks have been doing stuff for a little bit and just letting some other people in. I'm not. I'm upset Vyn isn't here. Narratively, I think we're going to be just fine, though. So we've already had a full conversation around safety. The Between does a great job of handling that. Jason, if you want to head through cats or anything else, really, I don't know why I'm talking, so I'm just going to hand things over to you to take us into The Between.
we already did cats and stuff in our session 0. So I think at this point we should just kind of slide right into character introductions and get going. So I want to say, though, before we begin character introductions, because I think this is important for viewers to know. Unlike in a lot of tabletop role-playing games, in the between, the characters are intentionally mysterious. There are lots of things that we don't know about them, and we're not allowed to talk about them either in or out of character until the rules of the game say we can do it. And so if when we're introducing the characters, it feels like, wow, I'd really like to know more. Well, we all would. And if you stick around for all 15 sessions, you'll learn everything you want to know about these characters, because that's what we're going to do. We're hunting monsters, but we're also learning who these characters are. We're learning about their dark, mysterious pasts. We are learning about why they are here in Hargrave House, why they are doing this dark work. And that's the fun of the game. The fun of the game is like revealing these characters. But we do know some things about them. We know some basics, and we know kind of what motivates them at the outset, and we're going to learn that stuff right now. So I think what I want to do is I want to do character introductions. As we do the character introductions, I want everyone to kind of pay attention to what is being spoken, because once a character is introduced, we are then each going to say one thing that we think can be found in that character's rooms in Hargrave House, like something that they brought with them, something that they maybe found while they were in London. It can be a small thing, it can be a big thing, it can be something that's even kind of conceptual. But in any case, that kind of functions as the equipment list in the game, and we as a play group get to fill that in for the other players, right? So I think what we're going to do is, going in the order of our little character keeper that we're using to track our characters, I'm going to, actually not going in the order, I'm going to start with the mother, actually. I'm going to read this little bit of descriptive text, and then if you, Tony, since you're going first, if you'll just then properly introduce your character by name, look, and vice, that'll be a good character introduction, and then we'll populate your personal quarters with fun stuff. So let's talk about the mother. The mother. Few understand the mysteries of human anatomy like you do. You are one of the most brilliant medical minds in London and could take your place as a lecturer at any number of esteemed academies. But you have different ideas, different plans. You are no longer interested in merely preserving life, but creating it. And so you'll do what you must do to survive, tending to the sex workers dying of consumption, assisting Scotland Yard with grisly forensic inquiry, and creeping about in the dark with these new people, these hunters with whom you share a home, but always your focus on the new life growing in your secret womb, your child, the one you hope will capture even the faintest reflection of the person you loved and lost. So let's meet our mother. Tony, give us the basics: name, look, and vice.
So I am playing as Nicholas Knox Spectum, he, him pronouns. For the look, we've got clean and unadorned hands, a vermilion waistcoat, and yellow smoked spectacles is the look. My vice is coffee.
Okay, very good. So we don't know too much about Dr. Aspectum yet, but we know some things. And so now Wes and B and myself will each say something that we think can be found in your personal quarters at Hargrave House. You can revise it if you want, Tony, or ask for a revision. Who has an idea?
Go ahead,
Wes. Yeah.
A collection of patellas.
Oh.
I don't think I know what that is. What is a patella?
The kneecap.
Oh, great.
So a collection of kneecaps, knocked knees.
Interesting.
I love it.
indeed.
I got you.
Have fun working that into an action. I can't wait.
Oh my goodness. I think you have a leather doctor's bag, but there's a lot of interior pockets that are like snapped shut, and no one really knows what's in there.
Lots of.
I'm gonna see if I can try to out-weird Wes, and I'm gonna say this is a challenge I'm always up for, by the way. I'm gonna say I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how it works. I don't know how big it is. I don't even know what it is, but I love the phrase flesh terrarium, and you have one. I'll leave it on you to give us the details whenever the time comes, Tony.
I love a flesh terrarium.
You know.
It may not make the character sheet, but Chad, if you have ideas about what Nox would have in their room, feel free to toss them out. Love to see
You
them.
know, truth be told, we should have a fourth player here giving you a fourth item. So if chat wants to provide the fourth item, whatever they come up with, I'll let you pick something, Tony, if it's,
Chat, let's see
not
it.
too outrageous. So, While chat is thinking about something for Dr. Aspectum, let's keep moving on and go to the undeniable. You have always been the most beautiful person in the room. Your looks have opened doors for you for as long as you can remember. All the money and material things anyone could want laid at your feet. Artists have found inspiration in the brightness of your eyes, the delicate curve of your cheekbones, the plump softness of your lips. One such artistic work, a masterwork, rises above them all, for it captures the essence of you. It is quite simply more you than you. And lately, people sacrifice everything to be near you, to please you, and, if they're lucky, to touch you. But what to do when you get bored with being one of the gods? B, do tell us about the undeniable.
The undeniable Lord Bastion Grey, he, they. Look, blue-gray eyes, tall boots, and a ruby-crusted riding crop.
Oh, nice.
And my vice is cocaine in its many, many forms.
Very good. Well, what do we suppose can be found in what are no doubt the largest, most luxurious quarters in Hargrave House? Who has an idea?
I think I love the idea of an ornate writing desk with a vibrantly colored inks that seem almost impossible.
I love that.
A sphinx cat.
Does it have a name?
What's its name?
You tell us.
Oh, that's Mercutio.
Ooh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Unless chat has a better idea, which I will take names. They better be rad.
I'm gonna say, what would be good? I'm gonna keep it pretty straightforward and say that you have a fabulous, extensive wardrobe of clothing. So.
Oh, yes.
And of course, if chat wants to provide you with a fourth thing, we'll love to have it. Let's keep going. Last, and certainly least, is the factotum. You had a life before you entered the service of your employer, but the details of that life are entirely unimportant. All that matters now is the person you serve and Hargrave House, where you will grow ancient and die if you're lucky. More likely, your employer and your employer's colleagues, these hunters, will be the end of you, overturning things that should remain hidden and goading on terrors that dwell in dark places. You'll do your best to help them, of course, to keep them alive, because without them, what are you, really? Wes, please tell us about the factotum.
Yes, my factotum is Langfisk. Pronouns are he, him. In the employ of the undeniable Lord Bastion Grey. The look of Langfisk, other than the very obvious Australian accent, is a green billycock hat with a matching tweed waistcoat and suit that looks very uncomfortable, like he'd much rather be in anything else, as well as a scar from the bottom of the left eye down to the lip. And his vice is betting shops. So a bit of gambling on the side there, mate.
Fantastic. I think you have a favor with a corrupt member of Scotland Yard that you can call in.
I think that you have a mostly complete silver coffee set in your room that I may have been giving you over time.
I think you have a knife, maybe one that you've taken with you on some travels, and the handle is made of bone. What kind of bone? That's up to you.
And of course, chat, if you got that fourth item for Wes and Langfisk, let us have it.
Yeah, we've got a couple of good ones that came through. Wes and B, I don't know if y'all are looking. Do you want me to read them out loud for y'all, or are you watching along and seeing what you might want?
Let's hear some of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Let's see. For mine, we had a tome of dried tattoo skins, which is 100% what I'm going to take. Jagged, it was great. We also had a pocket watch that only goes to 11 o'clock, and a box with a beating heart in it. Let's go down a little bit, has a little book of names for the undeniable, a little book of names of people who and their various desires. We had gilded thumb screws for Lord Grey also too. Also, Amanda just throws out that somebody needs a poison ring. It's always useful as well. For the factotum, we have a shovel covered with grave dirt, or a love letter from home for the factotum are also items that got thrown out.
So what do we think? So it sounds like you were taking the tattoo.
Oh, I'm digging the tome of dried tattoo skins. Absolutely must have. Needed in my quarters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A taxidermed alligator just came through for Langfisk also too.
Oh, that's pretty. Oh yeah, because he's an Aussie. Yeah.
That's really good.
I'm taking the gator. I was going to take the shovel, but I'll take the gator.
Oh
Nice.
man. Oh man, they're all so good. I was absolutely gonna take like the Book of Desires. Like that's really cool. But man, when I heard thumb screws, the things I could do with those.
So what's it gonna be?
It's the thumb screws.
All right, sounds good. All right. So we've met our characters, and in just a moment, we're going to learn about our first threat that you're going to have to contend with. But before we do, I want to say a little bit more about this setting and about this place, Hargrave House. So this takes place in Victorian era London. We are going to do our best to convey our version of Victorian era London, which is a responsibility that we all share. It's not just my job. We may get some things wrong historically, or there might be some things that are a little anachronistic, and that's okay. We'll do our best to convey the culture and technology of the era, but it's fine if we don't get it exactly right. I also think it's important to know about Hargrave House that the characters are just the current residents of this place, this large Gothic mansion. This mansion existed many, many years before all of you got there. And there were other people living there doing the same work, protecting London, protecting the crown from these monstrous threats. And so you're just the current residents of it. And in fact, when we pick up the story, you all have been living and working together for a time already. So it's not like you're all meeting each other for the first time. You all know each other. You maybe don't know the details of each of your respective sordid and dark pasts, but you at least know each other at a basic level, at a kind of professional, collegial level in Hargrave House. We don't dwell too much on how you each came to live at Hargrave House and work at Hargrave House. That's something we'll learn as we play. We also don't dwell much on who owns or runs or funds Hargrave House. That might come up later, but for now, it's not that important. For now, just know that Hargrave House just is, and you are here to do the work. And so, are there any other questions before we dive in? Okay, so we have as our goal for today to learn the basics of the game. Now, everybody watching, we all know the Between. Everybody here is very familiar with it, but we are going to be a little bit deliberate in how we kind of go through the game, because I'm assuming there are some people watching this who don't know anything about the Between. So we're going to do our best to kind of teach as we go. And so this game is divided up into phases of play. We start in the day phase, and then we go to a little short session called the Dusk. Then we do the night phase, and then we do a little upkeep at the end called the Dawn. Okay. We start in the day phase, and in the day phase, we have to do two things. The first is I have to introduce a threat, and then the second thing is we play and we do the investigation. The day phase is most similar to any other role-playing game you've ever played, and we'll learn about the other phases when we get there. But for now, I have to do the first thing, which is to introduce our first threat. Now, all this information for the threat is going to live in the tab for threats. I have not transferred the information over there yet. If somebody wants to do that while I'm chatting, that would be very helpful. But for now, just pay attention and you'll learn everything you need to know. Okay. Hargrave House is an old Gothic revival style building. It stands out from its neighbors on Belgrave Square, which are done in the more conventional classical style. Hargrave House is also different because it's not just a residence, but a place of work. Dark work. And some more of that dark work has just landed on the doorstep. Our first threat is called the St. James's Street Ghost. A back issue of the Illustrated Police News, a tabloid notorious for carrying salacious, blood-curdling tales of dubious provenance, has a story about a young maid, Ginny Hess, who was found dead, apparently from shock, in her employer's St. James's Street townhouse. The story claims the townhouse is haunted, and that it was almost certainly the appearance of a ghost that caused the young maid to die of fright. After a cursory inquiry, you all learn the precise address of the haunting, 18 St. James's Street, and the name of the family that lives there, the Beals. I'm going to direct a question to... I think I'm going to direct this to Langfisk to start. Langfisk, most tales of hauntings are complete nonsense, especially those carried by the Illustrated Police News. But Hargrave House has some experience with ghosts, and a particular detail in this story confirms that this is a legitimate haunting. What is it?
Behind sightings, you had a bit of ectoplasm being left behind. Really going up the place there, mate.
Ectoplasm left behind. Interesting. How did the Illustrated Police News describe the substance?
Gooshy. Gooshy. Never heard that one before, mate.
Fantastic. So the way this game works, the way the threats work, is you have questions and opportunities. You are going to go to maybe to 18 St. James's Street, maybe some other part of the city, and you are going to investigate this mystery. And you're going to try to figure out what you can figure out about it, and you're going to be gathering clues. And those clues are going to help you answer what are called questions. And we have 2 questions to kick off with the St. James's Street ghost. The first is, which part of the house is the ghost attached to? That is a complexity 4, more on complexity later. And if you answer this question, I'm sorry, it's a complexity 2. It's complexity 2. And if you answer this question successfully, you now have access to a new move called Old Bones. I'll tell you what that does if you decide to pursue that. The second question is the question that's more important to actually figuring out what happened here and getting this ghost to go away. How can we get this ghost to pass on to the next world? That's a complexity 6. And that one allows you to resolve the threat by performing a quieting ritual. You also have something available for this threat called the Mask of the Unquiet. We'll talk a little bit more about Janus masks later, but for now, just know that there is an aspect of the Janus mask called the Mask of the Unquiet available on this threat. And so, with all of that said, let's dig right in. I want to go around the table and find out, just at the outset, what you each might be interested in doing. How might you approach this investigation? Do you want to go straight to 18 St. James's Street and chat with the Beals or maybe the neighbors? Do you want to go to somewhere else in the city to, kind of see what's going on? This story in the Illustrated Police News is still fairly fresh, and so there might be a body somewhere. Jenny Hess might be available to look at, the poor dead maid. So what do we think? Let's start with Dr. Aspectum.
I do want to see if Jenny's body is available for viewing. Having worked with Scotland Yard before, do I think I would have a good sense of where that I might find it?
Absolutely. There are a number of mortuaries throughout the city, each for the various districts in the city. And there is a mortuary that is most likely where they would have taken Jenny's body. Indeed, you might have even heard, because as we established earlier, Hargrave House is your side gig. You also help Scotland Yard as your kind of main gig, right? You have a lot of side gigs, though, to be fair. And so you would probably even know exactly where to go find her. So that sounds like a good plan to me if you want to go try to find the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds great. Mr. Gray, what do you think?
I think I'd like to talk to the Beals.
Okay, I love that.
That's who I'm interested in.
So heading over to 18 St. James's?
That's the plan.
Langfisk?
No question, I go where Lord Grey tells me to go. So if Lord Grey requests me to go to St. James Street, then I will go to St. James Street. If Lord Grey requests me to go to the morgue with Knox, then I shall go to the morgue with Knox. If Lord Grey requests me to leave and go to America to go grab some oranges from a place called Florida, then I shall go to this place called Florida and bring back some of the freshest oranges I can.
You're such a doll.
Well, then it sounds like it's in your hands, Lord Grey. Where would you like for Langfist to go?
Why don't you go with the good doctor? I don't think you need to be talking to the owners of the house. That's just no need for that. Might get startled.
Are you sure?
Oh, I'm sure they're perfectly harmless people.
As you wish, Lord.
Have fun.
Fantastic. Let's do a couple scenes, and then we'll have our first break after we do a few scenes. I think I do want to start at the mortuary. You might know the mortuary worker, Dr. Aspectum, a fellow named Pate, and he's younger, not nearly as knowledgeable about the medical sciences as you. He's mostly just a guy that keeps bodies as cold as possible until it's time to bury them. I think I'd like to have the scene with the two of you maybe approaching the mortuary. It's the middle of the day. How do you look walking down the street? What's kind of going on? Let's just have the scene. Role play.
Yeah, I think as you know, we see Nox kind of confidently striding down the street, but also a little bit lost to what's happening around them. Obviously, kind of consumed with. It doesn't seem the case in front of them or the issues in front of them so much as something else, but in a way where they have walked this path enough to not have to pay that kind of attention. It's a very practiced. There's even a moment where we hear kind of a bell ring in the different distance, and I stop and pause, and maybe Langface gets a few feet ahead before a carriage rushes around the corner out of a nearby mail dispatch place that it's just been kicked out of, and then I just seamlessly move ahead. But it's very evident to anyone watching that I'm not paying attention.
You're gonna end up in this mortuary if you don't keep your eyes up there, Doctor.
No, not for a while now. It'll be fine. What are you? Where were you? What are we doing? What were we coming to look at?
Did you forget what we're coming to check out the body of Miss Hess?
Miss Hess.
The young maid who was scared to death by the ghost.
Dead, certainly. A ghost, we'll see. I think we'll be able to figure out that there are plenty of other potential opportunities for death in the city of London.
Do you need me to do the talking here, Dr. Spectum?
Nox is fine, and yes, feel free to chatter away. I'll take care of all the hard work.
Oh, all right. One of these types. Okay. And just keeps walking. It just goes, just nods, checks a pocket watch, puts it in the pocket, and keeps walking.
As you step into the mortuary, I think you'll find that it's a surprisingly cool place. They have managed to keep it fairly cool, mostly by having it be somewhat subterranean. You have to go down some stairs to get to it properly. This helps with keeping the bodies as fresh as long as possible. Also, I think that there is something of a bit of, how shall we put it? There's a particular lack of reverence for the dead that end up here, mostly because this mortuary tends to be where they send bodies of people who are, let's say, from the lower classes. And I think here I'd like to do what's called Paint the Scene. Paint the Scene is a question that I pose to you all, and in the answering of the question, you all help develop out what the scene looks like, and you tell us something about this place. You tell us something about an idea related to this place. And so I want to follow up with that. So all of you, please, as players, what do we see in the mortuary that shows that the poor dead are treated differently than the rich dead?
The rich dead, their things are collected in boxes and sent to their family. The poor dead is collected in piles for the mortuary attendants to go through at the end of the day's work.
I want to lean in on that. I think we actually see someone sitting next to a body with a lunch pail that looks like a relatively freshly brought in body with a lunch pail open on their lap, going through it and pulling out a piece of like toffee that was stuck in there and just sticking it in their mouth right next to a body that it was just brought in with.
And I think some of the bodies are actually stacked on top of each other where they ran out of room and they're not doing any inspection or going through their things. They've just sort of been piled up on tables.
Fantastic. We'll pick up the scene in a moment. I want to check in with Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray, do you take a hansom cab to 18 St. James's Street, or do you walk?
Well, how far is it?
Probably not very far, but it might be a little déclassé to walk.
Then a cab, of course. Handsome cab. Obviously, I can't get these dirty.
Well, let's talk about how you look as you step out of that cab. Like, what are these solidly middle class people in London seeing as you step out?
They see someone who is dressed maybe not to the fashion of the day quite. It's a little avant-garde, a little risque in terms of neckline, in terms of boots, the lace. But it's very, very like overdressed for the the whole thing.
What sorts of fabrics are we talking about here?
Fine linens and silks and lace. It's just the whole. It's very clearly high quality and
Color?
black and red.
Oh, okay. This neighborhood, this street, is a very middle class sort of street. And middle class has a slightly different meaning in London at this time than it does, say, in the United States, which is to say that it means like it's kind of like upper middle class, right? As we would know it. We're talking doctors, lawyers, accountants, professional types, social ladder climbers, that kind of thing. And so there's a lot of emphasis placed on appearance. You need to look like you are on the way up, right? You need to look like you are rising up to a new station in life, right? And we might talk about some of that, what that looks like in a bit. But I will say that you see lots of nannies pushing perambulators. You will see young couples in well-tailored clothes walking hand in hand in parks. You will see apple-cheeked children with shoes that are not worn down, running up and down the sidewalks. There's a little bit of money on this street, though certainly maybe not what you've been accustomed to or grown accustomed to in your life. In any case, the cab drops you off in front of 18 St. James's Street. I think there's a gate that leads into a little, yard or garden, and then there's the front entrance. The house is surrounded on all sides by a fence that's a hedge. What do you do?
If I can walk up to the door, I just straight up walk up to the door and knock like I belong there.
Yeah. I think as you walk up to the door, you hear a rustling in the hedge off to your left a little bit, coming from, it sounds like there's somebody in the yard in the house next door. What do you do?
I am about to knock. I put my hand down and I look over casually, like I live here, and just to see what's going on. Maybe it's a small animal. I don't want to deal with that.
I think you will see, peering through the hedge, framed by foliage, just a face. And when this face realizes that you're looking at them, they just yelp and fall back, and fall down into the grass.
Well, that's a interesting way to greet someone. Is this what you do all the time?
And the woman who's on the other side of the hedge, she says, "Oh, I'm very sorry. I was just examining my rose bushes. I have to get the man in here to trim these. My goodness, look at the state of this. Very, very sorry." And she kind of sticks her hand through the hedge and waves apologetically, right? She definitely wasn't spying on you and whatever's going on at 18 St. James's Street. There has been so much activity as of late.
Of course. You don't have to leave. No, there's no need for that. Why don't you stand up like a proper person and we can be introduced? Hmm? That would be a lot less rude.
She comes around to the side of the gate, and you see that she's kind of a middle-aged woman. She's wearing a corset that is entirely too tight, streaks of gray in her hair. She comes around and she says, "Oh, hello, hi. Are you a friend of the Beals?"
Soon to be, yes. Are you?
Oh, I'm the neighbor. I live next door. My name is Patience Head. And you are?
It is lovely to meet you, Miss Head. I'm Lord Bastion Grey. Just paying a
Oh,
visit.
a lord. My goodness. Um, and you can tell she's getting really flustered. She's doing that thing that people do whenever they're around you, right? They're getting a little flustered. They can't quite, they're sort of like, I, I don't think. I think this is normally the time of day when Alice takes her afternoon repast. If you would like, I'd be happy to entertain you for an hour or two or three.
That would be lovely, darling. Especially if you could answer some questions for me about all of this busy goings on here. I'm so terribly curious.
Oh, yes. I mean, I, I, I do. I have sort of taken the responsibility of keeping an eye on things. I mean, it's certainly no business of mine what goes on in their household, but what sort of neighbor would I be? What sort of community member would I be if I didn't stay abreast of things that go on around here? Why don't you come around, Lord Grey, and I'll have Andrew make us some tea.
That sounds lovely. Thank you so much. And thank you for doing your duty as a community member, Miss Head. Oh,
yes.
it's so refreshing.
Oh, I do appreciate those kind words, especially from someone from the peerage. It means so much to me. And you can go to her house. You are no longer at 18 St. James's Street.
I'm gonna go to her house.
Let's check in with Langfisk and Dr. Aspectum. Dr. Aspectum, you see Pate. Pate is there. It's actually fairly empty right now. The bodies tend to get dropped off at night. They get dragged out of the river and dropped off at night, right? Pate is a tall, willowy, kind of nervous kind of guy, shock of hair going all over the place, and he's wearing a long kind of like an apron over his clothes, just to avoid the juices from getting on him. And he says, "Oh, Dr. Aspectum, that's a little early for you, wouldn't you say?"
Nox is fine, Pate. Yes, we came to see the new one. What was it again? What was the name of the young lady?
The name doctor is Jenny Hess.
Oh, Miss Hess, the maid that supposedly died of fright.
Ooh, yes.
Did you see the story in the Illustrated Police News?
Yes, it apparently caught
I
the
gave
eye
them a quote.
I read. I'm very excited for you. Maybe, maybe you'll catch the night shift sometime.
Yes. Well, I assume this is official Scotland Yard business.
Oh, we thought we would come down and lend a hand.
He kind of like nods as if to say, "I don't know if I should believe you, but I'm too professionally intimidated to say otherwise." And so he sweeps you into the back room where the bodies are stored. He's quite sure you can find it. Now, there's a chance that he's going to be looking over your shoulder the whole time, Dr. Aspectum, unless Langfisk wants to deal with him. So what do we think?
No, mate. Langfisk is going to hang out towards the back, keep an eye on things, maybe look around the room a little bit, see if anything's gone missing from young Miss Hess.
Let's trigger a move. So I think this is our first opportunity to trigger the information move. And if you want to go over to the character keeper, if you go to the little there should be a little like move reference somewhere in here. Yeah, there's a tab for moves. The information move says when you search for a clue, conduct research or otherwise gather information, and that's what you're doing. Describe how you're doing it and roll with an appropriate ability. In this case, you've described sort of looking around the room and seeing if anything stands out. And so I would say you're probably using reason to see what you see. And so go ahead and roll 2d6 plus your reason score, which is 1.
That's a 4 and a 2 plus 1. That brings it to a 7.
On a hit, which is a 7 plus, you find a clue. I'll tell you what it is. On a 7 and 9, however, there's a complication, either with the clue itself or a complication you encounter while searching. The keeper will tell you what the complication is. I will tell you the complication. We'll role play it in a bit, but the complication is going to be that somebody from Scotland Yard does walk into the room. So we will pick back up with that in a moment. Meanwhile, Dr. Aspectum, Pate, he's like pulling out multiple drawers, trying to figure out where he put Ginny. And he kind of pulls one open and he's like, he pushes that one closed, pulls another one open. And he's like, oh, pushes that one closed, pulls another one open and just goes white in the face. You can't even see what he's seeing, but it must be bad. Shuts that drawer. And finally he gets to Ginny. He's like, here we are. Young Miss Hess. After you, Doctor.
We talked about this, Pate. If you want to move up in the world, you're going to need to institute at least mildly better organization on the day-to-day.
He says, it may surprise you to learn that I have achieved all of my professional aspirations already, right now, just here with the bodies.
Oh, Pate, my good friend, I mean, I'm here with you. However, I think, you're working day shift right now. This is the slump. This is this isn't the A game show. I think you could do more than this. I think you could be a night shift worker. Think about it. First responses, right as the bodies come in, fresh, cutting them open, looking inside, finding what they have to offer you, helping solve the greatest mystery of our time. That could be you, but it's going to take more than this. And I do believe in you.
Thank you, Dr. Spectrum. That's very, very kind of you
Let's
to
hope
say.
you haven't bungled this one too badly. Go ahead and slide it out.
He does. You see, Jenny, what do you do?
Have they, what has been done to the body so far?
Well, presently, I would say they have, it's been a couple of days, been probably 3 days since that story came out, or since they found her, since it happened. And I would say that so far they have set the body in the drawer and that's about the extent of it. I mean, they do have like a little cataloging tag on, on her ankle and that kind of thing. But I think Pate will kind of rattle on a bit and basically explain that, they're basically just waiting for like someone from her family to respond to the summons to come collect her and figure out what to do with her. So
not a local then.
No, not a local. They think she was Welsh, actually. So.
Interesting. And I just start, you watch as Nox just slowly starts with the back of his hands just wrapping along different parts of the body, like probing different cavities. There's something of a almost kind of staccato to the way that he starts to inspect and look over the corpse. it seems vaguely scientific to anybody watching. Like, it's certainly methodical, but it's obvious that we have a certain type of science that a lot of people might think of as more of a passing, almost spiritualist fad. There's very evident something akin to like acupressure happening with
Oh.
these wraps also too.
Interesting. Now, you do have a move. Do you want to trigger it?
I do have a move. I do want to trigger my move. I don't know if
Beneath
this is
the
the
skin.
moment I want to trigger my move.
I mean, Beneath the Skin says when you examine a corpse, you may ask the keeper two of the following questions.
Oh, that's right. I
Of your
did
list of
forget
3.
that.
Yeah. So anytime you examine a corpse,
Yeah.
you can do it.
Um,
So you have 3 options there. Just for people watching, they are: how did this person die? I'll give you a clue, or I'll answer with a clue. What would an untrained eye overlook here? I will answer with a clue again. And then, maybe most interestingly, can I take a body part for the child without anyone noticing?
yeah. I think I want to go with what would an untrained eye overlook here.
Okay.
And at this point, I think we'll also go with how did this person die. I don't feel like I'm in a good position to just swipe a piece of Mrs. Hedge yet.
Very well. I'll give you your clues in a moment. And Langfisk, I owe you a clue. Let me check in with Lord Grey one more time, and then we'll take our first break. Lord Grey, you are through your probably like 3rd cup of tea at this point. Ms. Head has not told you. I mean, we're just doing like a lot of like kind of social preamble here. Her put upon butler Andrew keeps, like, he's just kind of hovering and making sure you have every little thing you need. And at one point, he's stirring the sugar in the tea, and he knocks the spoon against the porcelain, and she has to correct him because Lord Grey doesn't want to hear all that rattling and all that kind of thing, right? And maybe you're picking up some tips for Langfisk later. I don't know. But in any case, at some point, you got to get her moving here. What do you do?
I think I suffer through this. This is the way of the upper middle class, the upper class. This is just sort of something he's used to. This is honestly bullshit. But as this goes on, he's really having a hard time keeping like the annoyance off of his face. And eventually he's like, Miss Head, I'm really interested in the work you've been doing. And he like actually shoos her butler and is like, could we like I would love to know sort of what you've been observing as of late.
At this point, go ahead and make the information move. I would say with presence, because you're very much charming her, and this is your best score. I think it's a 3.
Oh yeah, it's maybe my only score.
That's what you got.
Let's see. This is gonna sound like a lie because it's 2 6s.
I buy it.
Nice.
A 15. Okay, good.
15, that's fake.
all right.
That's a fake score.
10 plus, you're getting your clue, of course. And then on a 12 plus, you might also learn something about the conspiracy, the mastermind conspiracy. So,
Delicious.
Miss Head says, well, and she sits down right next to you on this like little settee, and she says, I don't want to say anything that is untoward or makes me seem deranged, but I did see something several nights ago which gave me a terrible shock. I have a feeling that I can confide in you what I saw, and you are not the kind of person who would judge me. You don't seem like you have a judgmental bone in your body, Lord Grey.
Not at all. Do tell me, darling, please. It seems like it's troubling you.
Well, I awoke because of a strange light in my window. An orange, ferocious light. And when I looked out, the night sky was aglow because a room a third-floor bedroom next door was on fire. It was a complete and total conflagration, Lord Grey. I didn't see anyone responding, and so I woke up Andrew and told him to run next door to see if everything was all right. But when Andrew went to the window, he didn't see anything. And indeed, when I looked again, there was nothing. It was as if I had dreamed the fire. But I can't believe it. I know what I saw. I know what I smelled. And here is your first clue, if somebody wants to note it down. Ms. Head saw a room on fire on the 3rd floor, but apparently it was a phantasm of some sort. This has been, I have to tell you, Lord Grey, it does my spirit a great justice to confide in you. You just have a way about you. I feel like I can say anything to you. I feel so incredibly open in your presence. Thank you.
Of course, Miss Head. I greatly appreciate you hosting me, telling me these riveting stories. I'm just astounded.
Well, I know you said you were a friend of the Beals, and I hope you will keep what I told you just between us.
Of course. I won't say a word.
Thank you. Now, do you like cake? And she's going to keep you there if you don't, like,
Oh God.
separate yourself
No.
here.
I will separate myself. I will act like I have some sort of calling. Like,
Indeed.
oh, I have an engagement.
And she says, oh, yes, excellent. Of course, I shouldn't keep you anymore, but do feel free to come by any time you'd like, Lord Grey, in the morning, in the afternoons, in the late afternoons, in the early evenings, at night. I am at your disposal completely. So is Andrew.
Oh, both of you. Well, that's fascinating. Thank you so much, Miss Head. I might take you up on that.
Yes. And I think we should get ready to take our first break. But before we do, as you step outside of 20 St. James's Street to presumably head back over to 18 St. James's Street,
Yes.
you see in front of the house the most striking, resplendent carriage. It is an enormous thing of dark locust wood, brass fixtures and fittings, enormous horses, a liveried coachman, and we'll pick up with that in a bit. But I think a break would be great at this point. So.
Love it. We're going to take a short 5-ish minute break, stretch, hydrate, take care of any of the things that we need to take care of. Well, if you're out there watching right now, whether it's live or later, you should take a short little break for yourself. Also, take care of yourself out there, people. We will be back in just a few more minutes to keep playing The Between. And stream, you are going to get to watch me because I have to do it live because of the way Streamlabs is being weird right now. Reset for a 4-player overlay. Wes just discovered that y'all can see me and was letting me know. But didn't know that I'd already let you. And this is the unseen. This is the newest newest unseen.
This is what actual play needs. None of this like be right back screens or stuff like that. Let's see how the sausage is made.
That's right.
This is the only way that you. This is how you.
I don't even know. Forget me.
It's authentic. It's real. It's raw. That's what it is.
I'm just,
Somebody
I'm just
bring
trying
in
to find
Alejandro
the fourth
Jodorowsky.
screen right now. That's the thing. Everything's hiding. Because anytime you're about to do the beginning of a new actual play, you want to switch to a totally new setup on everything. Also, too. Audio, video, software, hardware. All right.
I turned off my camera so it wasn't like visually terrible while you were moving.
No, it's fine. It makes it a little easier to actually zone
Well, then hello.
Yeah. But I think we're 95% of the way there, so I'm going to take us back to the title card. Hey, chat, while you're waiting, tell us who you think is going to be in that carriage, or guess which unseen, if you know what that is, you think we're going to play through.
Okay, are we back?
we are back. That was me accidentally muting and unmuting y'all on repeat for 3 times by accidentally just clicking things. We're pretty zoned in. I switched this over to a 4-person overlay. While we're just gonna shift a couple more things around, which I have to do live because of the weirdness of the internet. All right, and we are good to go, Jason. And yeah, my little pop screen keeps on falling off, so I'm going to mute myself in between when I'm not on. But other than that, Jason, you are ready to take us back into the between.
Fantastic, thank you. Clues, clues, clues. We're all getting clues. First thing, Dr. Aspectum. Your question on beneath the skin, the first one was, how did this person die? Well, I think I'm going to answer it kind of in a weird, kind of squirrely way, which is I'm going to tell you how they didn't die. Because you notice there are marks around Ginny's neck, which indicate that she was throttled. You can see bruising around the neck. And even though she's been dead for a few days, the bruises still seem pretty fresh and blue. And yet, this is not how she died. There's no apparent crushing of the trachea or anything like that. It's as if a strong force just gripped her around the neck and then let go.
Mm-hmm.
That's your clue. Your second question was, what would an untrained eye overlook here? Well, something that you will have learned in your many months of working with Scotland Yard, dealing with bodies turning up in London, is that many women, younger women especially, have secret pockets sewn in to their dresses or bustiers. And it looks like no one thought to check Ginny Hess for such a thing. And indeed, you find inside a pocket inside her dress what appears to be a stack of love letters tied with a red ribbon. But here's the thing. You don't have time to do it now, but if later on you go through those letters, you'll discover that they're not signed by anyone, and they're written with a hand and with a voice that makes it seem like they're really old, maybe from decades, maybe even a century ago. So Ginny Hess has these really, really old love letters on her person. That's your second clue. Langfisk, you're looking around, seeing what you can see. When you hear from the entry hall, yes, 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 I saw that ridiculous story in that rag, the Illustrated Police News, as if the police would ever be involved with such a thing. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, Simmons, I have so much to say about that house over at 18 St. James's Street, and let me tell you, none of them are spectral in nature. No, no, no. Miss Hess was found at the bottom of a flight of stairs, having clearly tripped and fallen and landed, and, unfortunately, expired. Now, yes, it's true, Simmons, that there were some unusual details, but one can't start extrapolating into theoretical realms of forensic inquiry. We have to keep things simple, Simmons. In fact, Simmons, I want to give you some advice. What you really want to do is you want to focus on the details of the crime scene, Simmons. The details are what separate those who are, let's say, police cubs from police tigers. The ability to see details, to process details, to paint and connect and fashion a vivid picture of the scene. For example, did you notice, Simmons, that the very, very top floor, the little room where they kept the baby, the nursery, did you notice that it was distinctly colder than the rest of the house? Now, a strange thing, yes, maybe. Suggestive of something eerie and weird? Unlikely. What I think, Simmons, is that someone left a window open, which caused a draft to blow into that room, making it colder, which suggests that someone snuck into the home. A burglar, perhaps, and maybe Miss Hess caught them with their hands in the proverbial till, and maybe she was silenced. We can't know for sure. Langfisk, you know it was a ghost, because that's what Hargrave House is focused on right now. You know about the ectoplasm, which I'm sure this Scotland Yard PI would probably, or DI would probably pass off as nothing important. The key clue is that the nursery was much colder than the rest of the house. That might even be something you can confirm for yourself later. So, and at this point, said DI, a small, nebbishy little man wearing a tweed coat, turns and he sees you and he says, "Hello, man. Do you belong here?"
G'day. I was just doing a bit of a cigarette smoking. Couldn't help but overhear you were talking about a most interesting case there.
What a fascinating accent you have, sir. Where are you from?
Well, where are the accents from? Australia.
Ah, quite a long journey all the way back over here. What brings you? How did you manage to escape?
Well, what I did was I took my captors and I took their heads and I took my two thumbs here and I jammed it in their eye sockets, nice and just gory like. And I crawled my way through the bush, escaping that work camp. And I climbed through it, muck, mud, briars, scraping my skin to bits until I made my way to the coast. Off in the distant shore, I saw a fishing boat, and I swam. And I thought it was much closer, mate. But look at me deep in my eyes when I tell you it was not closer. It was about 3 miles offshore, and I had sharks, and I had manta rays, and I had all sorts of nonsense just falling after me, and I had to fight them off with my bare hands. And I climbed aboard that ship, and I killed every single one of the crew that was on board because they wouldn't take me to the mainland. And then I took that ship, and I sailed it around and all around the Horn of Africa, right up by Portugal and Spain, and sailed right into the English Channel right here to London.
I'm sorry. You're going to have to go through all that again. I was distracted by your cigarette smoke. It is a terrible habit, you know.
I took a boat, mate.
Right. Well, enjoy your stay.
Didn't catch your name proper.
Pettigrew. Detective Inspector Pettigrew.
Ah, Pettigrew. Yeah, I've heard about you. Yeah.
Oh, you see there, Simmons, he says to the guy behind him. Already, this person, fresh off the boat from Australia, is aware of my reputation.
G'day, Simmons. Any luck on the ponies?
Simmons Simmons kind of gets a little, shrinks a little bit and kind of wanders off, backs away slowly, right? Pettigrew says, I didn't know you rode horses, Simmons. Oh, interesting. Well, very good, sir. Mind the cigarette smoke. There are other people here. Of course, the bodies don't care. He excuses himself.
Fucking Barbies. All right.
Indeed. Let's cut back over to Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray, there's this, or Lord Gray, I suppose. There's this large carriage, dark wood, brass fittings. There's a little curtain in the passenger compartment. And the person in the passenger compartment slides the curtain over. And you can see now it's a woman, an older Black woman, though, despite the fact that she's clearly older, maybe in her 60s or 70s even, she's still quite striking. She's dressed in what appear to be very rich blue taffeta dress, and her hair piled up in curls atop her head, fixed with combs. And most striking of all, nestled on her breastbone, a large, dazzling sapphire, a jewel that, assuming it's real, and by the looks of this carriage, there's no reason to question why it would probably be enough. It'd be worth enough to buy a palace. An incredibly fabulous detail. She's just staring at you, a small smile playing on her lips. What do you do?
Well, this person is much more my speed than I'm sure,
Poor Miss Head.
lovely, poor Miss Head. Not that she needs to know that, but I smile back. I wave, and if she doesn't immediately leave, I'm just going to waltz right up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gray.
Good afternoon. Have we been acquainted yet?
I think we are going to have an opportunity to become acquainted, even if we are not yet. Though, I certainly know you. Your reputation precedes you.
Nonsense. Well, I'm shocked I haven't heard of someone as striking as you. Miss.
You do like to flatter, Mr. Gray. That is an admirable quality, something I find enjoyable in most people, but especially someone so fair as you.
Oh, darling, please. You are a gorgeous creature. Now, what? I didn't catch your name. What was it?
No, I suppose you didn't, did you?
No.
She leans back. Enjoy the rest of your day, Mr. Gray. And she closes the curtain and signals to the driver to carry on, and the carriage pulls off. I'm going to give you a condition, the sapphire.
Oh, okay.
And let's do a quick check-in at the mortuary, and then we'll kind of figure out what the next scenes look like. Dr. Respectum, Pate will eventually get pulled away by D.I. Pettigrew, who wants to look at various records and reports and things. You know D.I. Pettigrew. He's kind of the pain of the rear. But Pate will leave you back there with bodies. You will learn what you learned from Jenny Hess. Anything else you want to do back there?
I want to look in drawer number 3.
Oh, okay.
The one that Pate obviously recoiled in horror at.
Oh, yeah.
I want to look in that one.
Okay. I think when you pull open the drawer, you see that rather than a horror, it's someone a woman, we'll say, who is strikingly beautiful. And perhaps what Pate was responding to is the fact that she has a smile, even in death. A beautiful repose. What do you do?
Has this body been prepared at all?
No, looks fairly fresh.
I think we see that same kind of staccato motion as I start kind of going over the body, tapping on the crevice of the neck, the shoulder, start to work my way down the abdomen, kind of pause on the hip.
What are you hoping to accomplish here?
This is just me getting into his body, but if there's no one around, my question is, Jason, could I take a piece of this body for the child?
I think between Langfisk and Pate and D.I. Pettigrew, I think they're all keeping each other pretty busy. Simmons, it sounds like, isn't going to open his mouth because it sounds like Langfisk has something on him. And so I'm going to say yes. You can absolutely take a body without a piece without anyone noticing. What do you take?
I think I tap for a second on the cheeks and I like gently like, or something. I like you watch Knox visibly shake off a very bad idea, as he then moves down further, just to the arm.
Interesting. I assume you have a tool of some sort you are going to use to separate the arm?
I mean, there are tools aplenty, I would imagine, around in
Probably,
the morgue that we
yeah.
are in.
Yeah.
But if not, I'm happy to make use of this black bag that I have with a lot of sneaky little pockets in it.
Now, you can get the body part. I'm letting you have it. But I do think we should take a look at your move,
Yeah.
which is the child, which says you have a secret laboratory in Hargrave House. Maybe we'll get to see it at some point, where you are building a person from body parts you acquire in the city. And when the time is right, you will use principles of chemistry and alchemy to give your creation life. When you acquire a body part for the child, you're going to note it on the sheet and then narrate a brief, pleasant memory of the person you lost that is triggered by holding, in this case, the arm in your hands.
So as I reach down to take the hands, we see kind of the ticking of kind of an odd clock on the wall behind us in the mortuary note, just for note taking primarily, and then we flash to a reflection of a much more ornate clock, reflected in some sort of convex lens, and beneath it we see a much younger, barely discernible Nicholas Aspectum on the ground in what looks like some sort of well-appointed den out in the countryside. You can see kind of soft light coming through the window, playing with my mother and a small dog that's obviously just been gifted to me. As we kind of step back, we realize that this kind of weird convex reflection is actually through the lens of our manservant, Charles, the valet of the household, who's kind of overwatching the scene. And I bring the puppy up to him and try to offer it to him to get him to play with the puppy. And I'm trying to pull his hands out of his pockets to try to get him to pet the dog, but he's trying to maintain kind of a separate and austere composition before he reaches out just very gently and brushes across the top of the dog's head and then leaves the room.
You have a set of arms. Langfisk, I think there's probably nothing else to do here. Where would you like to head next?
Knox, mate, my lord is probably concerned about where I am. You think you can find your way back to the house?
That was for Dr. Aspectum.
Sorry. Stream stuff. I'm sorry, what was that?
You're going to be able to find your way back to the house, right? I need to go check upon Lord Grey.
Oh, yes. No, I should be fine. He says, closing a slightly overstuffed bag from when you walked in. I'm sure they need a hand. I'll probably be here for a few more hours before I head back.
Need a hand?
Mate, I don't know what you're on or not on, but I suggest that you either get off it or get on it.
Indeed.
I'm going to be heading to 18 James Street.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good to me. Let's check in with Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray, once you're done with the Lady in Sapphire, what do you do?
I think for a second, I consider following her carriage just for a split second, realize that would be gauche, and I don't. And instead turn to knock on the door of the house I originally intended to visit.
You can do that. There's a bit of a wait. And eventually you hear from the other side of the door a woman, just a second. And a very stout, squat woman who you smell before you see. She smells of tobacco and onions, and she's wearing a kind of dingy, kind of cook's, smock. And she opens the door, and at first she's like, yes, but then she sees you, and she's like, yes. How can I help you, sir?
Thank you. That's better. Are the Lord and Lady of the house, are they here?
Lord and Lady of the house, Mr. and Mrs. Beale, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, they haven't quite achieved the lofty status of Lord and Lady yet. Mrs. Beale, she's just waking up from her nap. Who should I tell her is calling?
A friend.
Right. I'm not really sure what the protocol is here. We haven't had a maid for a few days. I'm sort of filling in at the moment. Come in, friend, and sit here. She has you sit in the foyer. And she says, I'll be right back. And as she walks away, she keeps looking back at you, looking you up and down, I think she thinks you're quite fit. And she goes upstairs to fetch Mrs. Beale. What do you do while you're waiting?
I look around to make sure there's not a bunch of servants eyeing me.
There's not.
Fabulous.
I think it was probably just Ginny and the cook, and Ginny's dead.
Sick.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I will snoop around. I don't sit when she asks me to. I stand because she can't tell me what to do. But and I do walk around just kind of casually, as if I'm admiring their decor, looking for anything.
I'll give you the lay of the place really quickly.
Yes, please do.
This is a multi-story townhouse, so it's very tall, right? But the floors are kind of narrow. In this main entry floor, this main level, the ground level, there's basically two large rooms. There's a sitting room on one side, and then there's a dining room. There is a set of stairs that go down. You can pick up that tobacco oniony smell from that direction. That's probably where the kitchen and servants area is. And then, of course, there's stairs that go up to presumably bedrooms and things. So where do you go?
Where did she go?
She went upstairs to go fetch Mrs. Beale.
All right, I won't go up. I will explore the rest of the area, though, and maybe just I hesitate to go down. I'm like, it's not. I don't want to.
Not your scene.
It's not my scene.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get someone else to do it later. But I am going to inspect where I'm at and look for anything supernatural, anything spooky.
There's probably not anything in the foyer to be concerned with, but maybe if you want to start in the sitting room or the dining room, which do you think?
Yeah, I'm completely leaving the foyer, completely leaving where she told me to stay, and just pittering around the house.
Let's start in the front room then. The first of these two main rooms on the ground floor. There's a small library, enough seating for the family and a few visitors. Let's do a quick paint the scene, everyone. in this front room, what in this room shows that the Beals are living a little bit above their means right now?
A clear. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
A clear tchotchkes cabinet is no longer containing tchotchkes, but china, fine china.
Oh, mm.
The the I need Wes to get out of my brain for a second. I was actually going to go in slightly the opposite direction, but that's twice in a row where I'm like, Bino, what do you got?
I think that a piece of furniture has been clearly reupholstered multiple times rather than bought new.
Mm.
Mm. The shoes by the door have been have obviously been recently repaired in kind of a manner that kind of belies like the tops are very well cared for, but it's very obvious that there's holes underneath in the soles.
Interesting. The way you described it, Mr. Gray, I'm going to let you have the information move, but with sensitivity, since you are kind
Okay.
of like trying to find the spooks or whatever.
Not my
So
specialty.
go ahead. And I'm going to tell you what else, just to kind of make this a little extra hard on you. The front room is actually wallpapered and upholstered in lots of blue. And I think that's going to remind you of the Sapphire Lady. And so I'm going to invoke your condition and make you roll at disadvantage, which means you roll 3d6 and take the two lowest and then add your sensitivity.
Love it. Fabulous. I'm like half-heartedly looking around, mostly daydreaming about this beautiful person I saw. That's a 4.
A 4. As you are walking around the room, you catch a glimpse of your image in the mirror. Something you do frequently, I'm sure. But this time, the reflection does not look right. This time, the reflection is withered. Your hair is no longer golden, straw colored. It's gray. Your skin is no longer smooth. It's wrinkled, desiccated even. At one point, the reflection widens its eyes in terror, and your right eye falls out of the socket and dangles by the little tendon, and your reflection actually gets nervous and grabs the eye and desperately is trying to push it back in. I would like for you to roll the day move. The day move is invoked. We'll read it here. Whenever you do something risky, or in this case, face something you fear, what are you afraid is going to happen if you lose your nerve right now?
I think if this is about me losing my nerve,
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm going to break the mirror.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I like this. Go ahead and roll with, I think it's sensitivity again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Just a flat roll?
2d6, yep.
Okay. Gotta check. It's a 6.
Oh, it's a 6. You I'm going to take control since you got a miss.
Yes.
You are losing control. You let out a cry, and you hear from upstairs someone says, are you all right, sir? Are you all right? And you hear them running down. They hear a smash. And when you step out of the room, Langfisk, you hear the cry also from outside the house. Maybe you're just walking up to the front door. What do you do, Langfisk? You kick in the door. You see Lord Grey, shards of mirror glass jammed in Lord Grey's wrist and hand, blood going all over the fucking place. Lord Grey, more pale than normal, a look of terror in his eyes. He's going to bleed out. What do you do?
Immediately rip the jacket off, start tearing it into strips, and just you hear this Australian man saying, "By God, you've killed them! By God, you cunts, you've killed them! I'll fucking have you all! I'll fucking have your guts hanging from the rafters! I swear to fucking God!" And just start doing my best to like wrap it up. First aid.
I love it. I'm going to give Langfist, you can, because you're there, you can save Lord Grey, but Lord Grey, I'm going to give you a condition drained. Langfisk, I'm going to give you a condition based off how you're feeling right now. How are you feeling right now?
Angry.
And I think
infuriated.
I think that will wrap the day phase for the two of you. I do want to check in with Dr. Aspectum. Dr. Aspectum, you have the rest of the afternoon. What do you do?
I mean, I make a show of.
I mean, presumably you go drop off the arms.
Yeah, I make kind of a show of walking around for about 30 minutes. In my mind, the 33.37 minutes, just enough time to not be suspicious before I leave. I do think, like, on the way back, there's the same kind of distraction, but now it's very clear to the audience, right, that I'm fixated on what's in my bag and getting it back to Hargrave House. So yeah, I'm gonna take these arms back where they belong.
You can certainly do that. And I think this might be an opportunity, a good chance for you to tell us a little bit about your secret workshop in Hargrave House.
Yeah.
Langfisk and Lord Grey don't know about it. So where is it at in the house? Like where is it that nobody knows where it's at?
So there is there's an old clock like relief on one of the upper floors of Hargrave House, and it hasn't worked for a long time. It was kind of given away to storage for a long period of time, to the point where everybody just kind of has forgotten how to get up there. And so I've made that kind of my secondary room, this space. And it's kind of perfect because the clock motif on the outside really is just a stained piece of glass. Like it doesn't actually have any clockwork mechanisms inside. It was entirely decorative. So there's no real need for anybody to come up here, look for anything, any of that kind of stuff. And so it's been just kind of hidden away behind a bunch of kind of stacked up old furniture at the end of one of the long, tall hallways. And we see me kind of making my way up through this kind of into this kind of like servant quarter hallway, like off of that one of the on the backside, and start slowly kind of working my way up a set of steps to a space that has just you see a lot of different experiments happening in here. We see some samplings from my flesh terrarium that I've been trying to transplant out. We see a few patellas that have not been fully cleaned, a few interesting specimens in tanks just kind of hanging there. A recent tattoo dome that's drying in the sunlight. Beautiful things that will eventually make their way back down, along with a large open bench. The light as it kind of comes to the late afternoon sun as it sets is kind of making this entire upper room awash in kind of these yellows and whites and reds, but with this big kind of dark dagger from this glass relief of a clock that kind of cuts over the front of it. There is a relief in this central table that kind of takes the general form of a person, and you see Knox walk over to it and start just kind of tapping around the edge of it as he walks, considering the space and looking around before slipping the arms gently into place on this relief, and then bringing up a fluidic, like bringing up some railings on the sides and slowly starting to pump some sort of fluid in over the top of them.
Fantastic, thank you. I think I'd like to have the scene between Langfisk and Lord Grey and Handsome Cab. Let's just have that little aftermath would be great.
Please, my lord, keep your arm above your hat. All right, just keep leaning it up right here. You don't have to keep it all the way up like you're giving like waving down a cap. It's fine, please.
Okay. Thank you, Langfist. I'm perfectly fine. I do appreciate you though. For this
What were you thinking going to those buggers' houses without me? All right, I understand that you have your. I understand that you have your independence, but it's not safe here in London. All right, as thousands of people all living so close proximity together that they're bound to lose their minds.
I can take care of myself, Langfisk, but you do know how much I appreciate you and your help, and I understand that maybe sending you off with a good doctor wasn't the most well thought out plan, but it turned out fine. You showed up when I needed you, so it's all fine, right? It's
as long as you're okay. I trust your judgment, my lord, and I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. All right, but just please allow me to handle things like this for you from now on. Let me be your glove.
All right, Langfisk. You know I trust your judgment too, right?
You honor me by allowing me to. You honor me, my lord.
It's nothing. We're friends here, right? And friends look after each other when incidents happen, right?
Of course, yeah. More than friends, comrades, a servant to a master.
And the most wonderful servant this master could ask for. And he reaches forward and almost touches under your chin. There is a this much space between his finger and your chin, and strokes the air under it and takes his hand back.
There is that please. Okay.
Should I trigger the day move here? No. We're good. I love it. I think with those two scenes, I think we will go ahead and just roll right into the next phase, which is the Dusk phase. So the Dusk phase is a phase that we do to prepare for the night phase. Now, the first thing we have to do is we have to resolve any playbook moves that would fire off the Dusk phase, and presently there are not any. Next, I'm going to pose a paint the scene question about Hargrave House itself. Hargrave House is a character in this game, and especially just now through Dr. Aspectum's descriptions, we've learned a little bit about it, but we're going to learn a little bit more. This scene, the Dusk phase, presumably takes place in a certain room in Hargrave House, and that's the room we're going to explore with Paint the Scene. The assumption is the characters are sharing what they've learned with each other so that you all have all the same information and maybe making plans for the night to come. But we don't role play that scene, we just do this phase. And so the Paint the Scene question for Hargrave House for this Dusk phase, let's go with let's go with the music room. I'm feeling musical. Our question for the music room: a former hunter in residence once used this room to wrangle a spirit using the power of music. There are still subtle signs of the struggle in this room. What are they?
A burned handprint on the wall.
I'm gonna allow Tony to go before me so I can stay out because I'm right now currently in Tony's brain and I'm seeing exactly what Tony's seeing. So
Oh, you're muted, Tony. I can't hear Tony. Is anybody else?
There's a piece of sheet music that couldn't be played on any known instrument.
the piano bench is in the ceiling.
Very good. Subtle. Subtle signs. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. That's the music room of Hargrave House. So at this point, I want to ask you all what you'd like to do for the night phase. Now, I like to say that the day phase belongs to you, but the night phase belongs to me. So even though you're going to tell me what you want to do, it doesn't mean it's what you're going to get to do, because I might have different ideas. All that said, I am curious what your characters are interested in doing tonight. You could go do a nighttime investigation of 18 St. James's Street. You could do some archival research. You could just hang out. You can try to trigger one of your, or try to get a yes on one of your dawn questions by framing up a scene that does that. Lots of different things you could do here. I will start with Dr. Aspectum. What would you like to do tonight? Good doctor.
I think that this is the first, I just have acquired the first body parts for the child. So I do think I'm going to spend the night in kind of prepping things in my room with them.
Okay, very interesting. And Lord Grey.
Well, I have a terribly cut hand, but so definitely not going back out. Instead, I think I might try to look up sort of some phantasmal fire things, try to just sort of, and maybe have Langfist try to sew me up or some
do some library
shit.
research or
Library
something,
research, something where I don't have to like move around a lot. I'm sick of holding my hand up.
Staying in. Sounds good to me. Well, Langfist, are you there taking care of Lord Grey then?
Absolutely, but I don't want to leave 18 James Street unattended, so I would like to call upon someone to go and mayhaps do some digging.
Calling in the Hargrave House informals then. Fantastic. We'll talk about that in a moment. At this point, I'm going to introduce the unseen. I'm going to explain what this is in some detail. The unseen is a scene that takes place the same night as what your hunters are doing. So we have the hunter scenes and we have the unseen. The unseen shows a scene taking place somewhere else in London on this same night. Just as we want to explore these individual hunters as characters and Hargrave House as a character, we also want to explore the city of London as a character. And the unseen is how we do that. The scene that we're going to be narrating together, the unseen, is not connected to the story at all. It has no direct connection to Hargrave House, to any of your characters, to 18 St. James's Street. No connection. The Lady in Blue. However, it can have thematic connections or visual connections. It can have connections that are more about ideas and vibes. We call those more ephemeral connections between the hunter scene and the unseen echoes in the night. And your goal in the unseen is to make those connections. And so here's an example of an echo in the night. Let's say during the unseen, Wes narrates a person dying of consumption, and that person coughs up blood into a wide, shallow bowl. And then maybe in the hunter scene, Tony narrates his character walking past a bowl of vivid red flowers. Those connections, the red blood and the red flowers, that's an echo in the night. It's something that connects the unseen and the hunter scene in a thematic or visual way. Or maybe it's more direct than that. Maybe the unseen depicts some street urchins or something like that, and you just talk about some street urchins, in the hunter scene, right? Something like that. It could be more direct and more, it doesn't have to be so poetic, right? As someone dying of consumption and coughing up blood. So that's the idea. We'll play around with it. We'll see how it goes. If you are able to get an echo in the night, either narrating something into the unseen that mirrors the hunter scenes, or something into the hunter scene that mirrors the unseen, you get an experience point at the end. That's one of your questions. Did you get an echo in the night? And the echo can also be something like the unseen can echo something from the daytime too. So if you talk about maybe something happening in a mirror, right? That would be an echo of what happened to Lord Grey, right? So that's one of your main goals during the night phase, is to play around with the unseen. Tell us a little story about what's happening in this other scene, right? Make those connections. The night phase is also very fast. So unlike the phase we just did, this is really, really fast. It's probably no more than like 20 minutes tops. It's just really quick, really dramatic, really feral, and then it's over. And the unseen is used as a timer, because basically, as we work through the unseen, we bounce back and forth between the hunter scene and the unseen. And when we do the last unseen prompt, that means we're just about done with the hunter scenes also. And so with all that said, our unseen for this first session of the Between is the prison hulk at Woolwich. Moored near the industrial town of Woolwich are a number of hollowed-out old warships that serve as temporary prisons for convicts set to be transferred to Australia and other penal colonies. One of these prison hulks is HMS Bellerophon, now called HMS Captivity. A too young cook is walking above and below deck, passing out the evening's portion of hard biscuits and pea soup. So that's our setup for the unseen. We have 4 prompts. The first prompt everyone is responsible for. The second prompt is going to be for B. The third prompt is going to be for Wes. The last prompt is going to be for Tony. If there are no questions, I think we'll go ahead and take our second break here, so you all have some time to think about the unseen, think about your hunter scenes, what you want to get up to in your little hanging out at the house evening. I have a feeling it's not going to be that restful. Just a wild idea.
Just a chill night at home. That's
Just
what we're all here for. We will be back in just a few minutes to keep on playing The Between. Chat, before we come back, go ahead and tell us what's the best place to get a Philly cheesesteak in Philly. Want to hear your answers when we get back. And we are back here playing the Between. Jason, take us into the night.
The night phase. HMS Captivity. How do we know the captivity is a nightmare of filth and desperation?
Rats. Every dark corner is writhing with wild rats. Sometimes the convicts wake up to being chewed on.
When an especially kind of salty guard walks by and spits into the dinner plate of one of the prisoners, it actually seems to excite them to have an extra little bit of food to eat.
I'm gonna hop off of Tony there and also say that you will occasionally see some of the convicts and prisoners taking the barnacles that were from the hull of the ship that they had reached their hands through holes in the side to grab and grasp onto, to chew on, to hold them over.
Langfisk, who among the Hargrave House informals are you going to try to get in touch with, put out word for?
Well, I remember from paying close attention to things, that's what I do, is that the Beals have a child. So what I'm going to do is give the Beals a little bit of a treat. It seems that they've been very stressed out with a ghost lately. So I'm going to call upon a dear friend of mine. She goes by the name of Velma Thinwicket, and she's a governess. So maybe she can go and help out with the child there a little bit while we're taking a nice little bit of an evening. You know, gratis.
They do seem to need some help there. Go ahead and roll the move. So the move says you skim money from the Hargrave House accounts in order to maintain a network of spies and enforcers throughout London. When you put out word that you need help from somebody in the network, select one of them and roll with presence, please.
I'm going to go ahead, and if you do not mind, I'm going to mark favor from a corrupt Scotland Yard member, maybe Simmons from earlier. Get word to Simmons that Miss Thinwicket is been accused of having some sticky fingers and sticky palms. So maybe we can help make that go away, and she'll go ahead and do this job for me.
For marking that, you get to roll with advantage, meaning 3d6 and take the two highest.
My presence is a 0, but that's okay because I rolled a 6 and a 5.
Fantastic. On a 10 plus, they show up right away and do as you wish. Any roles associated with actions they help you with are taken at advantage. So we'll have that scene in a moment. Dr. Aspectum, what does the start of your night look like?
One of the flesh terrarium transplants has died, so I kind of start clearing that out, and then there's like a slight bubbling from this liquid bath that has the arms in it. So I go over to kind of pay a little bit closer of attention to what's happening in the tank and see kind of how the degassing process is proceeding. Lean in close.
Yeah.
Did you say something?
Oh. I'm curious, Dr. Aspectum. Do they ever talk back to you?
Not so far.
And yet, you do hear something.
It's okay.
I want the night move. What are you afraid is going to happen if you lose your nerve?
I'm afraid this experiment will fail also.
It's worse than that. You're going to discover that this experiment has picked up something hostile from Hargrave House, an old remnant, something a previous hunter left behind. And it's going
That's
to
great.
be bad.
Oh, it's going to be bad. Never mind.
Well, we'll see. Go ahead and roll with, I think it's going to be composure for now.
Well, that's a 6 and a 4 plus 2, which makes it a 12.
Fantastic. Good job. We'll pick back up the scene in a moment. Mr. Gray, I would love to know what your rooms look like, what relaxation looks like. What do we see you doing right now?
It's luxurious velvet in deep, rich colors, reds and purples and golds, and one of those little oh gosh, what are they called? Those fancy chairs. They're long.
Shays Lounge.
Shay's Lounge. Thank you so much, because that's what they're called. And you see him, and he has this robe on, this smoking robe on, and he's actually pulled out he's got instead of actually taking care of his hand like he should be, he is holding it above his heart because he has a cigarette and he's doing this in one hand and he has a book in the other, and he looks terribly annoyed that he has to keep this up or even be vaguely debilitated by this thing he did himself.
Fantastic. Let's go back to captivity. Back at captivity. B, please narrate a scene in which we see the convicts at leisure. How do they entertain themselves? How do they maintain their connection to God and society, if at all?
We're somewhere in the interior of the HMS Captivity. It's hot, if the convict's brows dripping with sweat can tell you anything. And most of them are playing some kind of dice game. They're clearly carved from some sort of scrap of wood or shell that they found. They're terrible dice, and bets are being made even though they don't have anything to bet with. Except for one man. He's not playing. He's found himself a semi-isolated corner with the rats and filched paper and charcoal. And he's writing what appears to be a love letter.
Langfisk, this governess shows up. Remind me her name?
Velma Thenwicket.
Mrs. Thenwicket. Not married, but her position would give her the honorific Mrs. A couple of weird things about Mrs. Thenwicket's appearance. First, she does not come through the back. You see her coming up the front, through the square. Second, she's pushing a baby stroller. You might be having a cigarette when you see her coming up the way, and do you go to meet her in the square?
I do. Don't want her coming completely up.
The square is normally pretty busy with carriages picking up your neighbors to go to evening functions, society functions, balls, things like that. But right now it's quite empty. There are just mansions on either side of the square, Hargrave House, of course. A wide expanse of cobblestones. Mist rolling between the crevices and the cobblestones. And you hear that baby carriage rolling on the cobbles plunk, 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 plunk. And you see Mrs. Thenwicket. She says, "It's funny. I already stopped by the Beals' home earlier this evening, and the perambulator, she stops, but the baby carriage keeps rolling toward you. Plump, 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 thump, thump. Dr. Aspectum, what is this thing you're talking to? This flesh sample, this whatever it is making noises, what is it?"
It is,
Is it something you can add to the child?
yeah, this is like the connective tissue growth that helps the different pieces come together.
I think if you want to get more detailed with it, you can actually add to the child right now. This living flesh can be harvested and added to your creation. Maybe it forms into a face, skin, heart, I don't know.
We see a spectrum reach deep into this pile of flesh and start to kind of massage and shape and form it before pulling out this somewhat kind of thick, rigid formation that seems at odds with the gushy nature of the flesh on the outside. It's thick and rounded, and it looks a lot like a rib cage.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Would that be something that would be helpful with the child?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, you know, the beginning of a torso taking shape.
Yeah. Be thinking on how this lump of growing, living flesh, sloughing and slurping in the terrarium, wrapping itself around bones, reminds you of your lost, the one you loved and lost, while I check in with Mr. Gray. Mr. Gray, were you going to do some research while you're in the room there?
Yes, I'm flipping through these silly academic books. I think there's some of them are a spectrum, some of they're the people who were here before. Just trying to see if there's any this fantastic, phantasmal fire. And having to sit still, it's terrible.
Go ahead and make the information move with reason to see if you learn anything. I'm going to put you at disadvantage because of your various conditions distracting you, I'm sure.
Yes, and I also have a -1 to reason.
This should be a great roll for you then.
A super cool and good roll that will go really well. Well, actually, that is a 5. I was like, wait, it would have been a 6, which wouldn't be any better.
Your misresult comes first in the form of a window in your room, the window that looks out into the square, flying open, a breeze blowing the curtain, and we go back to HMS Captivity. Wes, please narrate a scene in which we see a convict being punished by a ship's officer. What did the convict do? How is the punishment being carried out?
We see it's not the hold, but it's this long kind of galley area of the captivity that's been retrofitted into like an officer's quarters. And we hear this thump, 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 thump as you see this burly man, bulldog-like features, with a mutton chops, wearing a prison warden outfit, saying, "You see, gentlemen, this is exactly the kind of exemplary performance I want to be seeing from each of our convicts," as the camera does a slow pan towards the end of this galley, as we hear the thump, 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 thump again, as we can see there is a convict that is attached to like a harness and is turning a wheel, walking as this wheel is grinding into grapes, making prison wine, essentially. And you can see the rest of the officers are just strewn about, smoking cigarettes. They're not in their uniforms, like full dress and anything. They're just having their gay old time here because they don't do any of the work. They just have to make sure that the captives do the work. Gentlemen, when I tell you that my time here aboard the Captivity has been a resplendent and enjoyable one, I do so mean it has been with you. And taking dogs like this. Wilkes, that was your name, right? I said my name was Wilkes. Thump, thump, thump. And what was it that you did, Wilkes? Thump, thump, thump. Well, sir, there was a window that had a shutter that clattered nearby me in a street, and then when a bobby turned the corner, I was standing there holding the shutter, and he said, "You, what you doing there, breaking and entering? Come with me." "Oh, of course, just like the rest of them. All innocent. Never did anything wrong in your life. Keep turning. I need more wine."
Dr. Aspectum, let's fire off the child move. Give me that flashback. Give me that memory. Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you, Tony.
I have 3 ways I can mute myself. We have we see this. We hear this kind of rhythmic pumping in the background as the Spectrum stares down at this flesh mold, and his mind casts back all of a sudden as we hear pump, pump, pump. All of a sudden, the slamming of a large butcher knife into a pile of meat and bone. Being an arm being pulled from a skinned, what looks, you can't quite tell whether it's a rabbit or some other small farmyard or forest animal. The form is too mangled, too messed up, and we see reflected young Nicholas's face again in the eye of in the monocle of Charles as he looks up, kind of wide-eyed at this preparation of dinner, this macabre scene, as Charles is showing him how to remove flesh from bone and how to mince the meat perfectly to make a simple meat pie for the first time ever. We see him call young Charles close and shows him where the rib cage connects together and has him take a small knife and work the blade into that small groove between them and then crack those ribs apart, as all of a sudden we then flash back as as Knox cracks the ribs together in the middle of this underwater fluid.
Langfisk, you're standing out in the square. The baby perambulator is rolling on its own accord in your direction. It comes to a stop about, 3 or 4 feet away from you. And from inside this little baby carriage, you hear a voice. "I'm just a baby. I'm just a little baby. I'm just a little baby. Oh, don't you want to look at the baby? Don't you want to look at the little baby?
No, Velma, I don't want to look at the little baby. What I want you to do is I want you to do what is asked of you. I want you to go to 18 James Street, St. James's Street, and I want you to keep an eye on the bills, okay? This
To
is
be
all.
clear, the voice is coming from inside the baby
Yeah.
carriage.
Yeah, just
I'm
cigarette in
just a
hand.
little baby. I want the night phase or the night move.
Okay.
What do you think is going to happen if you can't keep it together here in the scene?
I'm afraid this little baby's gonna make me look at it.
How is it worse than that? I think it's worse than that. Whatever is inside will hollow you out.
Oh God.
Do go ahead and you're going to make the night move unless you want to go back inside the house and not trigger the roll. But if you trigger the roll, you're going to make the night move with sensitivity. And I think because of infuriated, I think you're going to have a hard time keeping your composure here.
That's fair. That's fair. You know what? Let's let it ride, okay?
Mhm.
All right. B. Do I go white, black, silver, or white, black, orange?
Silver. Let's get fancy.
Okay. Disadvantage?
Yes.
And that was with composure?
No, sensitivity.
Sensitivity. Okay, then that is just a 7. 3 and a 4.
The carriage stops. Mrs. Fenwicket shakes off whatever was going on, and she says, Mr. Langfisk, where am I? What's going on?
You look in Belgrave Square, all right? You've come to speak to me. I've got an assignment for you. Whatever this whole little I'm just a baby thing going on, all right? I've heard you got yourself into a bit of a sticky situation. What I'm trying to do is help you out here, mate. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You go ahead and check on these bills down to 18 St. James's Street, and I'll help you out, all right?
Right, of course. Of course, And then you hear I want to go inside now. I want to go inside now. Mrs. Fenwicket. Well, let's just say at a certain point, Mr. Gray, when you look out that window that is blown open, you see a woman who we know to be Mrs. Fenwicket floating in the air up to your second story window. Her head is dipped back. Her arms are spread wide, Christ-like. Langfisk, you saw that happen. You saw her arch back and float up into the air. And we will make our last trip to captivity at this point. Tony, please narrate a scene in which we see a convict finding comfort and companionship within the bulkheads of captivity.
We hear the kind of thump of an uneven wheel as it's a cart filled with small buckets and old dirty rags is wheeled down the hall, and individual buckets are passed through small slots in the openings of the doors because it's bath night, the once a month opportunity for the captives to wash themselves down on the captivity. As the cart makes its way down to the very lower decks, to the end of a hallway, we see the attendant kind of pause. Instead of just opening the slot this time, they open the door. And we see the young man who was outside trotting around in the grapes, sitting on his bunk, skin discolored and purple, seemingly exhausted. As the attendant moves in, they say, "I hate it when they do that to you." We see the door close behind them as they move forward, and they lock their arms around them, caught in the moonlight. They deeply embrace and fall into the bed for the night.
Dr. Aspectum, how do you find comfort and companionship within the walls of Hargrave House?
Hargrave House is just a place for right now. It is bristling with potential, but that's about the only thing currently that I'm able to take comfort in. I find myself alone with my thoughts and an empty relief on a table that's slowly taking shape. I take comfort simply in an experiment that's gone one step further than any attempt I've made before.
Langfisk, because on your night move you got the mixed result, you keep it together, but there's a complication or cost. That complication or cost is happening right now as Mrs. Thenwicket flies into the open window of Mr. Gray's room. Mr. Gray, because you got a miss, you are getting tackled by an airborne Mrs. Thenwicket, who is not only wrapping her hands around your throat, she has her mouth stretched open and is drawing forth whatever you have in you. You entered 18 St. James's Street and gave this thing a taste, and it wants more. If you put on the Janus mask, I'll let you fight back. Otherwise, Langfisk is going to have to rescue you.
I'll put on a mask. I think this is a good opportunity to do that for the first time this session.
Let's talk about the Janus mask. For people who do not know the Between, the character sheets all have two sections, collectively that are called the Janus mask, the mask of the past and the mask of the future. At any time after a die roll, after the roll has been narrated, in this case, after we narrate Mr. Gray being tackled by a possessed Thenwicket, you can choose to bump up the roll and get a different fictional result. And so this would make your miss into a 7 to 9. You can choose to bump it up by marking Mask of the Past or Mask of the Future, or because we have a mask available on the threat, the Mask of the Unquiet, you could also mark that one. But whichever one you mark, you have to do whatever it says, and then you get to bump up your die roll. So what are you going to mark?
I think I'm going to mark a Mask of the Past.
Do you want to narrate it now, or do you want to wait?
That is up to you. I'm going to leave that in your pacing.
Let's keep it for later, after the phase. And instead, you have an opportunity here to save yourself from this thing. What do you do?
At what point are we rolling back? Is she tackled me already, I'm assuming?
Whatever you think would be interesting.
All right. I think that we get that same playthrough. She does come through the window, tackle him off the Chase Lounge, the cigarette gone from his hand, and she grabs him by the neck. And I think that's where we change. And he scrabbles, reaching over to anything, and there is a letter opener from the desk that has fallen on the ground from the wind, all of this blown off, and he just tries to stab this woman.
Langfisk, I'm gonna say that Mr. Gray can save himself with the Janus mask completely, but you might have to save Mrs. Thenwicket, your agent, from Mr. Gray. What do you do once you see what's happening? Do you rush upstairs? What's going on?
Would you say that there's a like a lattice leading up to this window?
Sure.
I think you see Langfus go, motherfucker, and then just take the coat off quickly and just like toss it over the baby like carriage,
Mhm.
and then just run for the lattice and then just start climbing, like hand over fist, just climbing up and saying, "Hold on, my lord, I'm coming right for you. Hold on, don't kill her, she's useful."
I love it. I don't want to. I kind of just like this moment for what it is. Well, okay. Your employer move actually gives you advantage whenever you act in defense of your employer, Langfisk, and so I think this might be a good opportunity to do that. This is going to be the night move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you don't get there in time?
That Lord Grey will
Kill Mrs. Thenwicket.
kill Mrs. Thenwick, yeah.
How is it worse than that? Boy, I don't know. That feels pretty bad. We'll just stick with that for now. Go ahead and roll with vitality, but you do get advantage because of your move, which lets you get advantage when you're dealing with the employer. What'd you
That's
get?
2 6s and a 4.
Nice.
So 2 6s plus 1 is 13.
With your bonus, I'll give you a clue as well. A clue that is found in the aftermath of the Mrs. Thenwicket attack. But just give me that scene, Langfisk, as you save Mrs. Thenwicket.
Yeah, I think we see Langfisk climbing up this lattice, just shimmying up it, much like a capuchin monkey climbing a tree, with a like expert dexterity, climbing up it, and like you can see there's parts of the lattice breaking, and it's from like his boots going from it, but it doesn't stop him because he's using mostly arm strength. Mostly the lattice is breaking under the boot is from anger. And then you can hear him gritting through his teeth the entire time, just a string of cuss words, as finally just shimmies, vaults into a window, and then assesses the situation, things in the room, grabs one of Lord Grey's sheets and puts it around Thenwicket's like head and everything, and then gently like has that hold tight with the left arm and then gently takes his lord's hand with the right hand and removes it and places it gingerly and says, "One moment," and then just out the window, like backs out the window, and you can hear a thud as like he takes most of the brunt and just lays down and is just holding the sheet over Thenwicket and goes, "It's all right. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down." And just like as you like we even see like when there's like a couple walking down the street, falls, thuds, hits the ground, and is just trying to keep them calm as they turn to see what happens. They don't see it and they keep walking. And then he's like, "Are you calm? Remain calm." And then it's going to slowly remove the bed sheet.
The spirit leaves, but before it leaves, it causes every mirror, and there are probably plenty, in Mr. Gray's room to crack in a spiral. Just a spiral crack in all the mirrors, and that's your clue. And that concludes our night phase with Dr. Aspectum caressing his now child with 2 body parts, torso and arms, and Mr. Gray and Langfisk dealing with the aftermath of a spectral assault. Let's go to the dawn phase. The dawn phases are basically end of session, in this case, upkeep phase. And let's just go do it real quick. You would normally collect rewards if a threat was resolved. It was not. Let's go ahead and answer dawn questions. So dawn questions are how you get experience points by answering yes to these questions. If you did the things that they say, you get an XP. And everybody has the same first 3 questions, which are, did the hunters answer a question? Capital Q question. No, you did not. Did the hunters resolve a threat? No, you did not. However, you might have experienced an echo in the night. And so let's just go down the line. Langfist, did you get an echo in the night? Oh, the rolling sound.
I
right?
did the thump, thump, thump,
Yeah.
thump. Yeah.
Yeah, good one. So you get to mark that. Dr. Spectum, did you get an echo in the night?
I did a cart move also too. I
heard that too. Yep,
I had another one, and I can't remember what it was right now, but I do know I did. The arm removal was a different scene also too. That's not the one I was thinking of though.
No, I definitely picked up on the little rolling thumping
Yeah.
thing when you did that. Baston Gray, did you get an echo in the night?
I tried to with the love letters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I noted
okay,
that.
okay.
I clocked that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I clocked that one too at the time. Okay, so you all get that one. Now let's go to the individual questions. Langfisk, did you demonstrate obsequious behavior toward your employer in front of others?
Lord Gray, do you think I demonstrated obsequious behavior towards you in front of others, which means obedient or
Cab driver.
attentive?
I would say so. Absolutely. I think you did it even without me there. So, yes.
Did you subtly express sexual desire for your employer in the way you dress them or serve them?
Lord Gray, do you believe that I expressed subtle sexual desire for you in a way that I dressed or served you?
I think we can count the cart scene, the cab scene, maybe
The
Or-
handsome cab?
the handsome cab scene. I'm gonna leave that to Jason.
I
to
think
determine.
the other one is what you're getting credit for.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'll say not yet. On
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it quite rose to that level.
Yeah.
Dr. Spectum, did you dismiss the possibility of a supernatural explanation? Yes, you did.
I did right off the bat. I was like,
right off the bat.
"Oh,
Yeah.
ghost."
I was like, good way to knock that one out. Did you put your hands in a pile of guts and love every moment of it?
I
I would say
did.
yes. Yeah, that's what your whole night phase was. So yeah, fantastic. Lord Gray, did you express a clear preference for the beautiful over the mundane? I would say pointedly not going down into the basement was that moment, right? And did you let someone touch you and then make them pay a price for doing so?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so you all get to mark XP for whichever ones you answered yes to. And that just leaves our Janus mask prompt. I will leave it up to you, B, whether you want to do it now or if you want to have a week to think about it. You can do it at the top of the next session. I'll leave it up to you.
Which do you think is more interesting? Because I do have something in mind, so I can do either.
I'm interested in you giving us a great story. So if you think you're ready to do it now, then do it now.
All
Otherwise,
right.
You can wait.
I'm a nerd and I pre-write some of this stuff.
I love
So-
it. Let's do it.
The first mask of the past. Narrate a flashback to your childhood that shows how, even then, people were willing to suffer in order to make you happy. We're outside, on the grounds of a manor, doesn't matter where, panning through lush foliage until we find a young Bastion, no more than maybe 8, standing at the edge of a pond. We only see him looking down into the water. We don't get to see what he's looking at yet, only that he's pensive about it, which is an interesting look on such a young child. And a middle-aged woman in a plain high-collared dress comes up behind him. "I've been looking everywhere for you, Master Gray. You're late for your lesson." And she gasps and stops herself when she sees what Bastion is looking at. And she turns to him again. Bastion doesn't look at her as he answers, but he just says, "She was unkind to me." And she puts her face in her hands and says, "I can't keep finding new ones. Your father will eventually get suspicious." And he looks at her and suddenly no longer pensive, but puppy-eyed like a child that's begging for a toy, asking Santa for something. You wouldn't let father find out, would you? Sure. Please, she was terribly rude. And we see the governess sigh, and she looks down. She says, "All right, I'll get one of the stable boys to help me." And as she's speaking, we pan to the pond, and there is a maid face down in the water, the back of her head bloody.
Thank you. And with that, we'll be ready to move on to our little quick debrief. But before we do, let's take a little trip outside of London first. That same night, when you're dealing with spectral attacks, fleshy emanations, outside of the city, out in the country, in a grand country estate, lit by numerous chandeliers and candelabras from the inside, a beautiful warm glow in the dark countryside this manor house is. And inside this manor house, there is a grand study. Enormous, soaring bookcases filled with books, an enormous desk, tiled floor, and on one wall, a gigantic map of the city of London. And set before the map is a wingback chair. We can't see who's sitting there yet, but we do see their butler, an old, twisted up man in black livery, carefully, slowly, tentative step by tentative step, approaching the chair, a silver salver in their hands, a drink atop the tray. They finally reach the chair, and its occupant is a beautiful woman wearing a sapphire blue gown. The enormous sapphire gem around her neck glittering in the candlelight. She takes her drink and swallows it down in one gulp. And then she stands up and walks over to that giant map. And she takes two large brass markers shaped like daggers. She sticks one of them on 18 St. James's Street, and she sticks the other on Hargrave House. That concludes part one of The Between. Let's go to a quick debrief if we have a few minutes here. I like to do stars and wishes. Stars are things that you all enjoyed about the session. We'll also take stars from the chat if chat's watching and they want to give us some stars. We love that. Things you liked about the story, about the game, about something one of your fellow players did, something I did. Wishes are things that you hope to see in the story next time. Whoever would like to go first, please go.
B, your reactions the entire time are one of the best parts about playing while other people are there. It's so good. It makes it so enjoyable to get that immediate visual feedback of incitement and enthusiasm. So I'll have other ones, but that for me was one of the best parts because it's also like our first time playing together. So it was just super enjoyable to have that.
Star for, well, just in general, I had a really, really great time. I have run the St. James's Street Ghost probably about 900 times, and it's always different. It's always fun. And I particularly like how this session started with a lot of levity and humor, and it gradually just tightened and tightened and tightened and got darker and darker and darker until we got to this end. Truly the sort of ultimate expression of that funnel being that Janus mask, which was excellent. It was really, really good and so dark and so good. And that's what I'm here for. I've got loads of stars, but that's what I'll start with.
Oh my gosh, since we're doing stars one at a time, I usually just gush and just sort of dump them because I am so excited about playing with all of you. You're all so fabulous. This was delightful. Oh my goodness. And so my first star, Jason, what a fabulous, fabulous first session. Your pacing is immaculate. And that baby voice was, it's terrifying. I loved it. I actually got creeped out a little bit. That was fun.
That's what I'm here for. So
Star to Tony for your little creepy doctor mother descriptions of like when you're like working with body parts or doing certain type of medical things. It's very visceral descriptions, which are like very just so good. You got that GM brain going, which is great. Fantastic stuff. I don't know if we're doing it around. I'll do another one as well. B, all right. I see how it's gonna be now. I see exactly what kind of employer you're gonna be. So it's gonna be a lot of me jumping through windows. Got it.
Twice
All
you've
right.
had to do this now. yeah.
Twice. Let me stretch a little bit.
You're really good at jumping through windows. I have to say, I'm impressed.
I have a
I'll
star
come
for
prepared.
all of the little mini flashbacks to the child from the child, like holding the body parts, and like I'm loving that story. Like I don't know exactly what's going on there yet, but I've seen just enough to where I want to know more, and so I'm really really thrilled about that. That's exactly how that should feel. Like I want more, right? And so that's really really good. And yeah, and star for that. It was such a small thing, but gosh, it was so well timed and good that like I stroke Langfisk, but not. I don't touch him. Love that. That was so so good.
I was about to call that like that moment
yeah,
was
it was
such a like I've never had a factotum in play in a between game before, and so getting to see that exchange super early on was just like so good.
Yeah, and that's actually I have a related wish because I really want to see, obviously within our boundaries that we've set, but I really want to see the two of you go deeper on that. Like I know we're just kind of getting going, and that was it's session 1, and that's the expectation is that we're not going to do everything all at once, but I want to see that go to some dark places. I want to see that go to some interesting places. I want to see Giveth, which is the undeniable move. The undeniable is fundamentally a villainous character, and I really want to see that come out. So yeah, those are, and how that like kind of reflects off of Langfisk. I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
Speaking of Langfisk, holy shit, you're into all of like your sort of like speeches. Like, Wes, I know you're fabulous at off-the-cuff speeches. Like, I just know this about you as a player. Langfisk's it delights me. Like, it's hilarious, but also, like, very real, very believable. Your Australian accent, I don't have to tell you, is fabulous. Fabulous. Everyone in the chat knows. Everyone here knows. It's absolutely astounding. And and also just this sort of, like, the drama, the kicking in the door, the just climbing a lattice and breaking it while you do it, catching a woman like you're catching like an owl that's gotten in your home.
Hero, right? Yeah.
Yes.
It was great. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So yes, I will have more stars for everyone, but this is so we can keep round robining.
I love it. Go ahead, Tony.
I was trying to say we talked about it in our session 0, but the dark totally played. Like chat blew up, Jason, when we came back from the break. Especially coming back from the break and having it just like the edge of your face and like just coming in and going out a little bit. Like chat lit up. Like it was so good.
Yeah.
Like absolutely amazing. I had a blast from chat. Amanda specifically, I'm a T-Rex, says, I'm just a little baby. Big star for B's reactions also too. And the amazing Janice mask. Wes's reaction to Lord Grey was cut by a mirror, and then for Tony growing organs and ligaments in a flesh terrarium also too. Some shout outs from the chat also too.
Mm-hmm. I have a star for I loved all the unseen prompts were really good. I really loved yours, Wes. Yours was so good. That whole scene, like that was great. Like I love it when like on the break players like come up with some shit. That's great. We love that. So
And your voice. I have to say the voice for that character.
That's sort of blubbery.
God.
Voice, so good. Yeah.
It absolutely like knocked me out of my fucking seat. That was so good.
as a wet sound GM, I was very proud of that wet sounding mouth. So
Shout out Gary Oldman from The Darkest Hour. I can't tell you what happened during
good,
that
yes,
movie, but he did a
yeah.
great job as Winston Churchill.
I also, Wester, I'll call it out too. I did love that. Like every time I was about to say something for the first 2 unscenes, you had something that was like so close to it. I was like, I was gonna do like really nice cabinet, totally empty, right? And you were like really nice cabinet filled with nicer china.
Yeah,
Like so,
yeah.
but it's like I love. Like one of the things I love about CFB is when you get to the good group think, and sometimes that means like those super overlappy whatevers, but like such a good whatever. I also love not being able to tell when something's an echo or not. And there was the broken window too. Like I mean,
Yeah.
it was like like there's just so many moments where everybody was going. That I'm just like I can't tell if that's an echo or not. Like
Sometimes it's not
I just
conscious,
love
right?
the
Which is
motifs
really
just
great.
kind of riffing out for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah.
It's delicious.
Yeah, I've got wishes. I'm excited to introduce our 4th hunter next week. Slamming open the saloon doors, coming in session 2. Excited about that. And wish also, I'm excited for vulnerable moves. Vulnerable moves always fire off in session 2. That's pretty typical in the between, and so we'll start to get to see that now that we have some conditions on the table. And I'm really interested to see these vices. I'm interested to see how these characters interact with each other. I'm interested to see how you're going to clear some of these conditions, or if you clear some of these conditions. Like, why would you clear the sapphire? I would keep that forever.
Oh yeah,
right?
I have no intention of clearing that.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly,
goodness,
right?
no.
That's my specialty, is conditions that the players don't want to clear.
Yes,
right?
I
So-
like this. Oh my gosh. Also, Tony, I wanted to say I love Nox just in general. Like I love me the kind of character, like the whole like you're just the sort of like distracted doctor thing, this Victor Frankenstein thing, but also the every flashback you do with the child. I know Jason said it, but I really love one in particular thing, the monocle reflection that you kept doing as like
That was good.
a
Yeah,
sort
that
of
was
thematic
really good.
thing. That was so cool. That was delightful. And I really love your spooky lab. I'm obsessed with it. I know I can't know about it in character, but I am so obsessed with this room already. And your flesh terrarium. Just and your all of your things. I love your weird collections. My wish is I want to know, does anyone else know in the house that you collect such weird shit? Like, are we gonna get to know that, or does it all stay down in the
No,
lab?
it's secret for
So,
now.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the Tome of Flesh tattoos 100% public knowledge. Like there are times that y'all were like there's a new page drawing somewhere that it shouldn't be. That one I think is pretty public knowledge.
Holy crap.
I'll put that
Noted.
I'll put that one out there for public consumption.
Some good stuff from the chat. Michael Van Vliet, Signal Station, ponders, no star yet for the piano bench in the ceiling. That was such a weird moment. It was so good. I'm not sure it completed the assignment, but it was good.
I am wishes for me. I'm always just super thrilled. Like I'm so excited to actually play a long campaign for the first time in years for me. Like it's been over a decade, I think, since I've got a chance to play.
Thank you for having
us
us too, by the way. Yeah.
So super excited about that. I think wishes wise, I'm super excited to see how the Factum does it. And I am super excited to see what it is like to, like, I don't love I'm not glad that Vyn wasn't here. I am super excited to have somebody step in to this weird crew, and it creates a very interesting
Changes the energy, right?
narrative moment for the American to get interjected. And I think that's a really good vibe for that type of character. So like I would have loved to have Vyn here from the beginning, but I also do love the literally having to step into that space and be unaware, which is very much a part of that character reality too. So
yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna work just fine. Actually, it's one nice thing about the game. Actually, all the CFP games really, it's pretty easy to do drop in, drop out, and in this case, it actually it does fit the American, right? There's something kind of American about showing up, like like showing up like halfway through, but
Uh,
yeah.
I literally cannot wait for Vin's dramatic entry. Like, this is my wish. I am so hyped for that. Like, if you're watching this, Vin, later, I am so excited. What are you going to do? The drama. I'm here for it.
Love it.
Wish for me, I can't wait to see what the second threat is. I've noticed in the times that I've run and play the between, the second or third threat really sets the remainder of the tone of like a campaign, because like your kickoff one is always like a good starter. It's like it gets you going and everything like that. But like once you start getting through that, then everybody's kind of understands what role they play within the group and what kind of dynamics they're bringing. And so seeing that translate and like also adding another thread into the mix is also gonna like kind of juice things up a little bit. So I'm excited to see what that turns into.
Love it. Awesome.
I think I'm all good with Stars and Wishes.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to be here every Thursday night, unless some weird thing comes up, which things sometimes do. But every Thursday night for the next few months, we hope you come back and join us. You can also watch things later over on our YouTube channel if you're watching on Twitch right now or somewhere else. That's youtube.com/+1exp. If you ever miss an episode, need to get caught up, came in late, any of that kind of stuff, that's going to be a great place to find things. I will also tell people right now, we are recording all the audio for this separately, because this year, one of our goals, in addition to doing more long form actual plays, was specifically to move select pieces over, including those longer arcs, over to podcast format. So keep an eye out for that. Coming probably, it'll lag a few weeks behind for sure, just to give us time for audio editing. There's stuff like that. But keep an eye out for that. Keegan is going to be kind of leading up the +1 pod. We've got some cool graphics we'll be dropping for that later. I really want to thank Jason for asking for this collaboration like Jason reached out about this and I said immediate yes. Also, let me go check with Keegan and Sarah, but yes, absolutely, we want to do this. Being able to put the team together, being able to hire folks like Heck, who did the intro video, which I forgot to play at the beginning of this one, but we'll play at the beginning of future ones, and we'll have a longer kind of recap sizzle a few episodes in that we'll break in. For Joseph, my brother, who did music that we will be having as a feature, both in that video and in some other things. For all the folks who are helping make this possible, we really love it. We love having the Gauntlet support, love being able to collaborate with you, along with all the great folks we have on here. I'm sure we have a bunch of really great stuff coming up. I'm going to be in Baltimore this weekend at Game Face Con. Come to Baltimore if you want to this weekend for Game Face Con. But we will be back next Thursday to continue to play The Between. Good night, everybody.